Clap on one. 3, 2, 1.
We
did
go.
it.
Holy
We're
shit.
there.
We're back. Been
We're
out
back.
a fucking month, man. How you doing? Oh, I shouldn't cuss immediately. Hey, man, welcome back. There's no cussing in this first 10 seconds. Did we ever figure out how long we have to go without cussing for YouTube?
I mean, considering there's like a whole 30 people who watch it on YouTube, I think.
Yeah, I think
we'll
big
be
picture,
okay
long game.
Yeah. Oh, long game, yeah. When this is like an instant, like an all-time classic, if people are going back to listen to this one.
When they're like, I remember the 2020s, this is going to be on there.
Yeah. Yeah. So, since our last recording, I got COVID, flew to America, and have been taking care of a toddler for the past week. How have you been doing, Mike?
I don't have as cool of a previously on or since on as you do, but I also got sick, not with COVID. I've tested myself 4 different times during my cold, which has lasted almost 3 weeks now. And I am just getting ready to get back to work tomorrow, even though I don't feel 100%. I'm pretty sure I'm not contagious anymore, and that's all that matters for the state to legally allow me back in a kitchen.
Yes, absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah, canceling my flight. I was like, yeah, I have COVID, so I need to cancel my flight. And they were just like, okay, that'll be $400, please. Or I'd like to rebook it. And I was like, well, I could just get on the plane with COVID. Yeah. And they're like, yep, you could.
Financially incentivizing me to infect others for my own economic well-being. This is good.
Yeah.
This is a good system we have. Jesus.
Yeah. But
so your COVID's mostly done now? Sounds like you still got a little bit of a chest thing.
Yeah, a little bit of a chest thing. Just kind of asthma and anything like that's going to make it stick around for a while. But yeah, pretty much back to normal.
Nice. Hell yeah.
Yeah. And it's been a fun week hanging out with my nephew, doing toddler stuff.
I was going to say, how old's your nephew?
He is 4.
Okay, that's a fun age.
Yeah. Lots of playgrounds and watching Bluey. And
I've never seen it, but I've heard things about it.
It's good. I like it. I've seen every episode 3 times in the past 2 weeks, so
sure, it's
starting to wear a bit thin on me. But sometimes we watch other things.
Yeah. It seems like fun. It seems like a show I would have really enjoyed as a kid.
Oh, yeah. It's very chill. It's very intelligent.
Yeah.
And I like it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, one can only do so much with children's television.
So when you finally get back to watching your own adult shows, what shows specifically are those that you're really longing for?
I did actually get a moment to watch Gremlins with my sister. That was a lot of fun because I convinced them it was a Christmas movie, which it is. And that was a good time.
If Die Hard is, it is too.
I mean, I would say that Gremlins is more of a Christmas movie because it's literally, the Gremlins are a Christmas present, right?
Yeah.
So I want to watch Gremlins 2 now. So
Gremlins 2 is so fun. God, I love that movie.
Yeah. It's a I mean, I don't know that Gremlins 2 is better than Gremlins 1, but I definitely like it better than Gremlins 1.
Yes, it has a special place in my heart that Gremlins 1 never will have because of how, I don't want to say bad, but yes, awkward, unique it is.
Yeah. It's like they took that scene in the Gremlins 1 when they're in the bar and just made that the whole movie.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm so down for that.
Yeah. What if this was a bottle episode? Okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Okay. In the States, are you happy that you're back in America? Or are you ready to...
mostly.
Yeah.
I got some pizza, got some good Chinese food.
Hell yeah.
Some beers. We're in PA, so I got some Trogs.
Cheers.
Cheers. What are you drinking?
This is a Sierra Nevada Celebration IPA. It's their fresh hop they put out every winter.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very familiar.
Big fan of it. Big fan.
Oh yeah.
I have a small shop down the road from me that doesn't get a lot of business, and they get mostly people who like Miller and Budweiser and, all that.
Domestic loggers.
Yeah, but they do get this in, and it will stay up on their like tippy top shelf that I actually have to get on my tiptoes for to grab until about June. They have enough stock in. So I get to drink all of my good beer. They're starting to get a little wise on like what good beer is versus bad beer and who will pay what for it. They used to have Weinsteffen had their Hefeweizen, their Weiss beer out like available, and they would do the big tall bottles as single buys only for $1 though. It was $1 for a imported Weinsteffen Weiss beer. And so I would just buy 6 or 12 of them at a time. And then they finally got smart about it and stopped putting it next to the Bud Light and realized like, oh, this might actually be like a high quality beer. And so now it's like $2.50 a bottle. And they only keep a few of them in. Yeah.
You think they'd notice that?
You'd think they would, but the guy who runs it, Dennis, is constantly complaining to me at the pub that he's ready to be done because none of his children want to run a small grocery store in like the boonies anymore. So, yeah.
That's a shame. But can you blame him?
I really can't, but I also kind of want to buy the place from him then if he's actually going to be done. If he puts it up one day as a legitimate offer, I would make one.
Would you make a legitimate offer?
I would make a legitimate offer, yes. I would make one. I would do it. Fucking ready. But he needs to wait like one more year. I can't leave the kitchen at Fetch high and dry.
That's fair. That's fair. Although,
they need to get
from what I hear about it, they could just use your grocery store as a kitchen.
Possibly. That would actually be a major expansion. It is like 10 minutes down the road. That would be an interesting project. Is our kitchen's off site, so when you order, it gets brought to you from another location.
Yeah, you just have to Postmates it or whatever. Like
Yep. I like it. Yeah, I'm sorry that like we're both sick. We're not really we don't have a lot of stories to tell, even though we haven't seen each other in nearly a month.
My plane got delayed for 8 hours coming out of Sweden.
Oh shit.
That was fun.
Oh shit. That's actually that's rough.
Yeah, so I mean I got there like the plane was supposed to take off at like 8 a.m, and I didn't take off till 4 p.m. But I got there like, crack of dawn, and I got there a little early. It was like 3 hours early or whatever, so I had a lot of time to like putz around the airport. But then, as they were getting ready to like start boarding us, they realized there was something wrong with the plane. So they're like, "Oh, we're gonna push it back and send it back to the shop and like fix it up. That'll be like an hour." And then they said, then they did the same thing to us again at like an hour or two later. So they like got us all ready to board, and then they were like, "Oh no, something wrong with it." But this time, instead of trying to fix the plane, they just they sent away for a new one from the hub, which was in Copenhagen. So, just sat around because I guess it was enough time, like it was short enough time that it wasn't like cancellation fee time. So they just gave us a meal voucher, a $10 meal voucher, while the plane came up from Copenhagen. But the thing was, since like the concourse we were on was passport controlled, we had to. But the meal voucher only worked for the parts of the airport that weren't passport controlled. So I had to go back through security, through passport control, to get. And then even then, I had to I was still paying out of pocket. It's like, what can you buy with $10?
Because that's not so on the state side. I don't know if every airport's the same, but when I've left the country stateside, you just leave the country like normally. Like you go to your gate. Nothing is different. It's when you arrive that you go through customs and like have to deal with the check-in procedure into a new place. I've never had to go to like on the U.S. side into like if you're leaving the country, go through these lines.
Yeah, I mean most places in Sweden don't. And this is only the one area of the one. It's a new thing. Usually, what you do is you go through, that at the same time as security, and then that's it. But sometime recently they switched it so security doesn't check your passport. You have to go through passport control elsewhere in the airport.
Yeah, that makes sense. Someone played Papers, Please and went, we should probably just have someone singularly focused on the passport and not try to have one person do everything.
Yeah, and it's not like you have to like you're checking boarding passes and like, oh, this one's going to Copenhagen and this one's not going to, this. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I get why they do it, but but anyway, that was fun. But anyway, I wasted a lot of time, so that was good at least.
I don't know. That feels like the right amount of time where it's like they should have just told me immediately that it's going to be a tomorrow flight, and then I can just go home and start my day over.
I know, right? I at the same time, but I also was like, I just want to get going.
Yeah.
I don't know. It worked out though.
I guess when you consider the time change, it was really only about 3 hours you lost or so.
Yeah. Sort of.
I don't know. I'm not great at that kind of math. At temporal math.
I think time moves forward at the same rate no matter what time zone.
I don't know. I feel like depending on the elevation, it might be a little different.
Yeah, maybe. I wouldn't have minded more than $10 on my gift voucher. Like I feel like I could have. And that was the other thing, because the airport was under construction. Like all the places, like because it gave on the voucher like all the different places that you could go to get food, and most of them weren't open yet. Like it was just a coming soon, Hawaiian poke or whatever. So I was just like, ended up getting a sandwich at a like newsagent's. And then we were also supposed to get free access to the lounge for the airline. But then I'm going by the lounge. The guy at the entrance is like, "No, that's not a thing we do." And the people were arguing like from my flight, saying like, "Yeah, the stewardess told us we were supposed to get free access to here." And he's like, "I've never heard anyone doing that before."
What?
So I decided not to try figuring that mess out.
The lounge is really nice. Like if you can get into one of them, I enjoy them. Yeah. It's one of the few perks of like actually having an American Express card, since they don't work almost anywhere for like stores themselves. It is like when you're actually at like a Delta hub, like getting into their lounge like for free all access with one of those is nice. Yeah.
Sounds swank.
It's just a better way to like deal with the time. I remember when I was a kid before 9/11 happened and ruined everything for everyone. When I would travel with my dad back in the day, like we could be in Dallas or Atlanta or something and just like leave the airport and go do things during our layover in the city and then just come back in, and it was no big deal. It was easy to just like walk back in and get to your gate.
Yeah.
No more.
I mean, it's still like there are some small airports I've been to that are like that. You could still like they're just basically like,
sure,
yeah. Like I think the airport in Eugene was just like,
that makes total sense for Eugene.
Yeah, like two guys just like standing there, like, oh, that's a bag, isn't it?
Yeah. No, that's fair. I mean, that's just the nature of Eugene, Oregon, though. Like, I grew up mostly in Dallas, and I probably know one of those two guys. Like, it's just, it's that kind of place.
Mm. Yeah, I liked Eugene.
Yeah.
But anyway, we should probably start the podcast. Coming at you live from my mother's basement.
Coming at you live from my parents' basement. Hey, we're both in basements today. Fuck yeah.
Welcome to The Save State, a podcast where we talk about a video game that we played. And today we're talking about Yakuza 5, Part 1 of Yakuzmas, which will probably stretch into January at this point.
It definitely will, given everything that happened health-wise. Yes. But yeah.
Yes, Yakuza 5,
we're
the one with
there.
5 playable characters and 5
so
different cities.
Excited. Yeah. I don't know.
So this was also, I think... Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I think you're going to have a more clear
So if you haven't listened to any of our Yakuza episodes, you should probably listen to those first. At least one or two of them. Preferably all of them, hey, you know, while you're at it.
Yes, there are
Yakuza
5 to listen to before you listen to number 5.
Yes.
Yes.
Let's not get into that again. But Yakuza 5 is, I think, the longest one of these is probably, like, it is 2 Yakuza games or several Yakuza games, like, all glued together into this one big game. I know for me it took me the longest to beat because, again, you have 5 playable characters. Well, kind of. One playable character only can't do combat in, like, the same sense that other characters can.
Yeah, but then that one's, like, combined with another.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's really more like 4 stories, but it's kind of 5 as well.
Yes.
And then
4 really good stories and then a character named Shinada. But yes, go on.
I thought Shinada was okay.
Well, we
but
can get into that.
Yeah, it's big, and, like, all these stories are individual stories that all kind of lead into one main Yakuza plot line. They all have their own little side jobs, so instead of having, like, 1 or 2, you have 5 different, like, sub games. I won't even call them mini games because they're, like, very elaborate.
Minigame down, and then I changed it to side stories, and then I couldn't remember if they call their side quests side stories or sub stories, and then I just gave up.
That's fair. Yeah, exactly. Because you still have the side quests, like random conversation quests, but then you also have like your Cabaret Keeper game or whatever the other ones were called. But in this one you have a batting game, a taxi racing game.
Yep.
Which is not like Crazy Taxi, unfortunately.
No, it's more like Driver, that series, if you know that, if you're old enough to know that.
Yeah, well, I don't even know about that, because Driver has, like, combat that this doesn't have.
Well, that's true.
There was a hunting game, which was very weird.
You mean great.
There was the dancing mini game, which was the best one. And am I missing one?
No. No. I think that's it. No. That's all of them.
Yeah, because technically, what's his face doesn't have his own game because he kind of shares his story with. I can't remember anyone's name today.
Haruka.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Akiyama.
Thank you.
Yes.
But I like this one a lot. If it wasn't for the like, this game I think has a lot of fun bits. Like, it's 5 fun stories that I like all of them. However, I think that it would have been nicer if this was divided up into, like, a Yakuza 5 Part 1 and a Part 2 or something like that. Because
yeah, I could see that.
Even if you don't try and 100% the side games, this is a very long game. And because, like, they have all the characters have to have, like, this similar themed story that feeds into this main plot line, you end up having some pretty similar story beats for each story, which is fine. Like, I don't think I necessarily mind that, but it felt like they all kind of ended the same way. Like, I don't think I ever felt, unlike most Yakuzas, this game felt like it was the most predictable as far as the storyline was going. Like, Yakuza, I feel, is as a game series, like, makes a lot of its like, its bread and butter is, like, weird twists.
Yeah.
And I think Yakuza 5 actually has, like, the fewest twists out of all of them. So if that's something you don't like, then maybe 5 would be the best one for you.
And 3 would be your least favorite then, probably. At least of the ones I've played right now. I'm just thinking of that one ending where it's like, I'm the big bad. No, I'm the big bad.
Oh, that's
and
2.
And here's the hidden gun. That's 2. God, they all start. It was the third one I played.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
God damn it.
It's the third one you played.
Yes.
A lot of 3 isn't Buck Wild either. That 3 is the one with the supersonic jet and the man who wrestles a bull.
So good. Well, we get a little bit of that in this one too, but
yeah, that's true.
The flavor of it. I really enjoyed this one. It was way too long for me. I'm not the best person with an attention span, and even games I really enjoy. Like, not to dip too deep into what have you been playing lately, because there's been a lot of stuff I've been playing, but I got a PlayStation 5 recently, and I started playing some games on that, and I picked up a few games, like core games that I knew I wanted to play, and one of those was God of War Ragnarok. I'm loving it. It's great. But at a certain point, my brain just went, you need something different to play. And so I started playing Lawnmower Simulator, and I was like just so enjoying that and into it that I didn't want to go back to God of War just yet. Like, Kratos can wait. Is he sitting on a lawnmower? I'm good then. Like, at a certain point, I've swung my weapons enough that I just need something different. And that is kind of what I felt like this game struggled with. The only saving grace was that it switched between characters so often. And I don't know if that was intentional because they knew this was going to be one of their longer stories. And this was, just the second time that they've had multiple perspectives for your main character. Yeah. So I think that was somewhat compensation for it, but it still felt like it just dragged on a little bit longer than I needed it to get to where the story was going.
Especially with 4 kind of doing it so much better that it kind of felt like it felt like a bit like more is less in this in with 5.
When you were put into a character that you really weren't feeling, like originally I was not enjoying Haruka like at all as a character. I was like, why is this a thing? Why are we doing this? Then I got really into the rhythm games that you do with her. You do these dance battles because she's trying to become a idol. And you go through all of that. If you've ever watched like American Idol or any of those reality shows, it's really fun. Like, it's all behind the scenes stuff then of like little spats they're getting into and rivalries. And that was great.
Yeah, I thought that was really good too, because like you get like the Yakuza style storytelling and writing, but like removed from like the Yakuza storyline. Granted, spoiler alert, it ends up being a Yakuza thing in the end. Yeah. With gangsters and what, but it's still like most of it is like just like a kind of not a star is born, but like a star rising through the ranks, how hard it is to be an entertainer kind of storyline. And it's really fun having that like the Yakuza style of writing applied to that genre, because it really adds like a certain amount of like tension toward like the villains, where at the same, like Yakuza characters, like Yakuza villains are always like very multi-dimensional characters. Mostly. Usually those like the henchmen aren't, but like usually you'll have the main villains be pretty deep, and then having like this kind of cookie cutter like almost Disney Channel storyline with that kind of writing. I mean, I guess there's some death in it. So
I was going to say that's the interesting thing though, is that there is some depth to it, because if you even just took Kiryu's story and Haruka's story together as like a mirror of each other. You've got this guy who's not quite entering his twilight, but he's in this weird in-between space, and he's trying to find out his place in the world.
Middle age.
He now knows where, he's having his midlife crisis, and he wants to know what is going to define him and what brings him contentment. And it may not be the life that he had before. It may be this later life, but the choices he made early on have now haunted him to this point. And so you have this story of an aging man and the regrets they have, that we all have as we grow older. And then you have Haruka's story, who is at the beginning of that tale of life. And she's now, it's this like tale of loss of innocence as she goes into this world that seems like it's
not
this
that
idol,
Haruka was
like,
ever innocent by any means, like growing up around.
No, of course not. But it is that classic story of like getting to finally the place you thought you wanted to be as a young person, and meeting all of those people who you adored, and getting into that industry that you adored, and then the curtain comes down, and you realize like this is all cutthroat. Everyone's out for themselves. No one is actually your friend. I think they did a really good job with that.
Yeah, it's so unfortunate what 6 does to Haruka as a story, as a character.
Spoilers.
I want to get into that.
Wow.
But it is just such a bummer, which we can talk about next episode.
We will. I guess we will.
Yeah, and and to a lesser extent, I also kind of I liked the way a lot of the side stories put these characters in different perspectives. Like you got Kiryu is like trying to be like this John Smith type like taxi cab driver, and he just wants to be a good cab driver. What's his name?
Saejima.
Big guy. Saejima is
My
like
favorite character.
His side story.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean he's great, and then his side story is that he's like it's like a hunting game where he's out like in the like Hokkaido wilderness.
That's a side
like,
story, yeah.
Hunting
His
animals.
story. Whoa.
Yeah, I mean I think some a bit. There are a few bits of his story, like his main story, that I felt were just kind of copying his story from 4 in some ways, but especially because they both have prison breakouts right at the beginning.
Yeah, but this one actually lasted like long enough to make me feel something about it.
Well, that's true. That's true. The other characters in the prison are also people as opposed to just like NPCs.
Yeah.
And then you see them at the end like that. That felt great.
Yep.
Like, I won't spoil who ends up at the ending, but it is pretty great when you see them.
Really is. That was probably my favorite of the storylines in the beginning chapters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
or acts, I guess you
with
could call them.
Baseball Boy, Shinada, you did not like him. So Shinada's character, just background, he's a disgraced former baseball player turned pornography entertainment writer, I guess is what you would say.
Adult cinematographer, but yeah.
Well, I mean, he writes in
That's
a paper
true.
about like brothels and stuff.
So
like
he's
that.
an adult photojournalist.
Well, he doesn't have a camera.
He takes a couple pictures of Milky.
Yeah, okay. But anyway, that's his storyline.
Yeah. That's his storyline. It's the weakest of all the stories. They really could have gotten rid of it, in my opinion. I guess it brings forward some characters that are important to the main beats, but I feel like they could have introduced them and shown their effectiveness in different ways without introducing Shinada into the mix. They probably could have done that during Akiyama's story, and it would have been fine. Shinada, my main beef with him is that not only is the like whole focus of his life that he's always failing at things that he desperately dreams to be great at, but that he never really puts forth the effort to ever try to be good at those, including the combat that he engages in. Easily the weakest of all the combat characters, and maybe that's my hating using weapons in these games. I really don't enjoy using them, and it's almost necessary for him.
Oh, absolutely it is. And like the one thing I maybe I should have warned you ahead of time, but as you move through Shinada's side story, you get unbreakable weapons from the batting cage games. And so like I just went and did all of his batting cage mini games right at the beginning, and that really made the combat less terrible. But you're right, his combat it feels really. There's actually one boss fight I had with him toward the end, which is like really weak to like just his basic bad attacks, which is nice.
God.
But by and large, like he's just, his combat is terrible. I kind of wonder. I mentioned this before that I kind of felt like what's the guy's name? The multi-ethnic cop from 4.
Oh God, Takanawa?
No. Whatever his name is.
Takamori? That's going to come to me.
Takamura.
There you go.
Yes. I felt like he was kind of like the soft pilot for the Judgment series. I kind of feel like Shinada is like the soft pilot for Ichiban from 7 and onward. Like he feels like a very similar kind of person. Like I don't know that Ichiban is like the same kind of like pervert character that Shinada is, but like that kind of weird like wildness mixed with like youthful enthusiasm kind of feels familiar to me.
Interesting. I'll have to see as we go. One of the benefits of having this PS5 now is that the Judgment series is free on PS Plus. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah, maybe we'll do those early into the new year.
Oh, absolutely, we should do that. That's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
But we still have. I mean, I haven't played the man who lost his name yet,
Erased
or the
his
man
name.
who erased his name.
Yes.
And then we've got the next one coming out like just in a few
Infinite Wealth
weeks.
or Infinite Money or something.
Yeah. Infinite Wealth. My God. Like I mean, it is terrible to live in such good times.
Well, plus I haven't
specifically.
Didn't they do one that goes back into the past as well?
Oh yeah, that's the what's that one? Ishin?
Yes, Ishin, which I do have. I have yet to play because I want to meet all of the characters in the real game stories so that I kind of appreciate them being reflected in the past.
Yeah, no, me too. Also, one thing that's interesting about Ishin is that it's the only one not in the Dragon engine or a in-house engine. I think it's done entirely in Unreal. So it'll be interesting to see what that's like playing a Yakuza game not in their own in-house engine.
Yeah.
Weird. I wonder why they did that. Maybe it was just easier to port it from whatever it was originally.
From what I've been looking into, it looks like 6. Speaking of engines for Yakuza, it looks like 6 we get back to the Dragon engine. And back to, I mean, it's Yakuza 0 through 2 that were remade in Dragon, that were made in Dragon Engine, and then which were the first games I was introduced to. So for me, this is going to feel like getting back to form.
Well, this will be more specifically like the Dragon Engine Part 2, which is you have only seen in Kiwami 2. So like, I think also the part of the problem is I think they've always called all their engines the Dragon Engine, but like you have the PS3 engine, which is like 3, 4, and 5, and then you have the PS4 engine, say, which is like 0, 1, or 0 Kiwami 1, and then hypothetically like the 6, like the PS5 engine would be like Kiwami 2, Yakuza 6, and then the newest Yakuza. Although I think they're all on the PS4 as well. I just was using that.
So did they do 0 before they did 6?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they did 0 and Kiwami 1 before they did 6.
Oh, and Kiwami.
So
okay.
Although I think I would assume that 6 and Kiwami 2 were production at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe I think they must have been working at the same time, because I think they have 2 teams, because there's no way they're putting out The Man Who Erased His Name and Infinite Wealth in a 3-month time period without 2 teams.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah. That's interesting. If you heard something weird, it could have been on my side, because I just had my entire room vibrate from someone walking loudly above, which is
me too.
a thing that happens.
Yeah, me too. I've never actually noticed it on your end before, ever.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Yeah. No, that was definitely on my end.
I didn't hear it on your end, so we're good. Can we pause for one moment? And then when we get back, I'd like to talk about the change up of combat in this game, if we could.
Good call.
Okay. Be right back. I'm back.
Great. Nice to see you.
Fantastique. Oh, well, we're going to get to that later. Spoiler.
Oh.
Yeah,
I got that.
happy accident.
All right. So tell me about the combat.
Well, I wanted your thoughts on it as well. I noticed that even though this isn't the new engine yet, they were definitely experimenting with new ways to engage in combat that reminded me a lot of Kiwami, especially when it came to the heat actions. Things seemed to be a lot more engageable in combat. It seemed like your heat actions depended a lot more on where you were positioned in the fight, and it felt more focused and interactive in that way, I would say.
Yeah, I think one thing that benefited us playing 0 and 1, Kiwami 1, is that like Yakuza likes to reuse a lot of stuff from its previous games, which is how they're able to make so many. And I don't mean that as a complaint, but like it also means that you get tons and tons of moves, sets, and actions and stuff from previous games. So when we were playing Zero, we were actually playing a game that had 4 games worth of heat actions added to it, and three, you had 3 different combat styles, which are all hand-me-downs from the previous games where you had multiple characters or more than 2 characters, and then in Kiwami 1, same thing. So I think what we're kind of seeing with 5 is that you're kind of getting back to the Zero style of combat more than it was the 3 and 4, where 3 is like a very perceptive step down in like speed and intuitiveness from Kiwami.
Yeah, the Kiwami specifically. Yeah.
Yeah, and there are some like pretty disparate levels of fun when it comes to the different combat styles, especially because like the two new there's only one new character with one new style, which is Shinada, which feels like a poor version of like the Bat style from Kiwami or from Zero.
Yep.
And then he has like his other brawl, like not combat. It's not fun. But like the Akiyama and Kiryu and why can I never remember his name? Big guy.
Taiga. Which it's not Taiga.
Saejima.
Saejima, yes.
Yeah, they all have already had their they've already existed. So, like not only for character development, they've also had like their combat fleshed out in previous games. So, I think that's also part of the reason why Shinada's combat feels so much worse. And also in 4, Takamura was also the weak link as far as combat style was concerned too. So like, feeling
true.
that four you have like, because I feel like it makes sense. You have like Akiyama's like fast, light movements, and then Saejima's like big, slow, heavy movements. Then you have Kiryu in the middle.
Yeah, you're
finding that
all-rounder.
fourth. Yeah, exactly. Finding that fourth style is kind of weird. Like,
no,
you already kind
the
of
fourth
have all your
style
bases
is
covered.
Haruka then, which is not fighting; it's dance battles, which that's perfect then. So
that was a ton of fun.
But you're right, trying to find a fourth archetype of combat. I liked the idea of, well, then they're just really good with weapons because they used bats and stuff. I don't know if that really translates well. Like, I feel like I couldn't put a chain in their hand, like a bike chain, and they'd be just as proficient as they were with a bat. But, okay, realization aside, like, whatever. That's fine. They still didn't need to make him, like, the animations he has during combat even are like, no, don't hit me, with like his arm really far out and he's just like waving the bat like he's never held one before. It actually felt less believable that he'd ever held a bat before because of the way he fought. And I get that was them trying to translate that he's not a fighter and he doesn't want to be in this position, but it also felt like, I don't know, I feel like if my career was swinging a bat, if it ever came down to it for my defense, I could probably do it.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, like, not look like a goober
and not look
hitting
like
people
this is the first time I've ever hit someone with a bat before. Right.
Right.
I don't know. Just something with that didn't click with me.
No, I agree. And, I mean, granted, most of the characters, like, this is the first character they've had who has no combat background, so to speak. Like, everyone else has always been like part of the underworld, and he's just kind of a scuzzy dude, I guess. But he has his underworld. I actually really liked the moneylender storyline. Not to get sidetracked, but the way he like that storyline plays out was pretty good. I thought that was better than I was expecting. Yeah. But yeah, so it was like the first kind of challenge in trying to write a character who had never like dealt with Yakuza before. Like even Haruka has been basically raised being kidnapped by a Yakuza gang
she's
every
blooded.
2-3 years of her life. Yeah. Exactly. So, there was some hiccups, definitely.
I think if they had changed the way even his fight animations worked in general, if not even the pace of the combat was supposed to go with him, and the placement of him with others, I feel like they were missing one thing to the formula and a little tweak to the animations, and I actually would have enjoyed him more, but I so dreaded playing it The story was great, but I couldn't enjoy it because I knew combat was coming eventually, and it was so distasteful to me. I couldn't get into it.
Well, I think that's probably why they made Majima's bat style in Zero to have like the unbreakable bat, and it's so much faster, and you have like the big sweeping like it to talk about before where I was mentioning like it never felt like Shinada's style had like a particular role.
Yeah.
When they do the bat style in Zero, it feels like that's your like single target attack one where you have like the breakdancing one. Whereas like the multi-target thing, you're like switching
I see
between styles depending on your situation. Yes. Yeah. So, but Shinada doesn't have that. Like it felt like it was just like I will use the bat because I suck less with a bat.
Yeah. Which fair if like in real life had to fight gang members and I couldn't just run away screaming and crying like I would in real life. I guess a bat or something similar is what I would try to have in my hands to swing around and go, no.
He's also a professional baseball player who has kept in amazing shape in his...
But that's my point is he doesn't swing it like he is.
No, that's true.
The animations don't translate.
That is one thing I thought was actually a fun little reference because like he takes off his shirt and he's like ripped and it's like... Why is this guy who's supposed to be an unemployed like writer ripped like that? And he's like, I just take care of myself, you know.
I get that.
Yeah.
I've gone through those phases of my life where I'm like, I'm going to work out really hard every day, and then like a year and a half later, I'm like, I think I'm ready to take a break, and then I put on like 80 pounds. Yeah,
I can't really manage more than 2 weeks, frankly. But you
know,
yeah.
Did you have
anything else? I have. Sorry.
I was going to ask if you had a favorite. Just trying to.
I really liked Haruka's story. Like I liked having that different, getting Haruka fleshed out as a character, as seeing that storyline, getting that different style of play as well, where it's like kind of a simpler what do you call it I can't remember words anymore.
Because we're sick and you have COVID brain.
Yeah, I think that's it. Games, rhythm games. It's like a
yes, it is. There is literally
switching to like a rhythm game
component to hers. That it's like actually very engaging.
Yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun. So I like that a lot, and I will have a lot more to say probably about Haruka's storyline when we talk about 6 because like I feel like. A lot of what I want to say is in context of the action of what happens with 6.
Interesting.
But I think actually one letdown I have, another reason why I think this game drags on for me is because like even like 4, you have 4 characters in one city, and Kamurocho is as much the character in these games as like Kiryu is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with 5, you have 5 different cities. And I don't think they had enough time or energy or whatever to flesh out those other cities like they were with Kamurocho.
Yep.
Like, honestly, like as much as I've always wanted to go to Hokkaido, and they make Sapporo seem like the most boring place on earth.
Yeah, no
it's
shit.
It's just like this. I honestly was like, this could be any city, anywhere. It's just kind of a grid with streets. I mean, maybe that's what Sapporo is. I'm sure it is, but. Aside from the little ice area on the one part of the map where they had like the ice festival, it felt very generic. And same thing with Nara. Like I felt like they could have. I mean, maybe Nara is also boring. I don't know, but they both felt like very boring cities compared to
soulless.
Soulless, and like you get like the especially like Kamurocho or Sotenbori or even. Yokohama in 7, like those are so much better done that these cities just were such a letdown. So another reason why I think 4 is better than 5.
I've been on record this whole time saying that this actually is a testament to how good Kamurocho and Sotenbori to its own degree are great locations because they can keep revisiting them. And not like make them bigger. It's just revisiting these streets that you've known this entire time and how they change, just like in real life if you live somewhere long enough.
Right.
And you slowly see that progression of change over time, and you look back at like the way things used to be, and I remember when this was here. There's actually something to it that is romantic in that way. And I did feel I was really missing that in this. Like, I wanted to spend more time there. And physically I couldn't, because there just weren't any more activities to be done at a certain point.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I hope that's not the trend that these games take later, and I hope they hyper-focus back onto the original locations. But we'll see as I experience them new and fresh.
Spoilers. It is. I think in 6 you just have you back to Kamurocho, and then you have a little village that they do a really good job of fleshing out. It's really lovely. Okay. And then 7 is all set in Yokohama. There's a little bit in Kamurocho, but it's almost all set in Yokohama.
Okay.
Which is its own thing. Too,
yeah.
So.
No, I mean, that's the idea, is that small is actually better. For a game like this, they really do it right.
Yakuza is the poster child for smaller. Is better, just smaller and more detailed. Like Kamurocho feels way bigger than any Far Cry map or Assassin's Creed.
I'm not even looking forward to playing that new Avatar game in any way.
Oh God, no!
Like, just speaking of new places to explore, it's like, no, I'd just rather get like a new version of Kamurocho in a different year to check out versus
not even
Pandora. Like, I'm good.
I don't dislike Avatar, but I have like a very I care nothing about it. Like it evokes
just full apathy,
no emotion, apathy. That's what I'm looking for. I'm going to attribute this to COVID brain.
Yeah.
Because you brought it up.
Yeah.
Apathy, but it's like it creates an emotional inertia. Like as soon as anyone mentions the Avatar films, like I just everything just stops.
So what did you think of the genre-defining sequel of James Cameron's Avatar Legacy?
I fell asleep.
I haven't even attempted to see it myself. So there we go.
Yeah, it was on. I walked in, I sat down, I fell asleep. I woke up an hour later and walked away.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I do that with movies I like too these days because I'm old now. But
cool.
But since we're talking about Avatar, I guess that means we probably are ready to move on from Yakuza.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, God, Taiga, why did they never call you Taiga? Saijima's storyline was, I will just say, my absolute favorite of all of these.
Yeah.
He has a really cool story where you get to go break out of prison, live on a mountain with a mystic man, and hunt a possibly immortal bear that you will fight with your bare hands.
You forgot the part where while escaping from the prison in a jet ski, he crashes said jet ski and then has to fight the bear with his bare hands.
Well, I alluded to it at the end there, but I was also going to save what I thought you were going to bring up, the incredible part of the prison where he does learn how to astral project, but that's fine. It's whatever.
Yeah.
Look,
yeah, it's very weird.
It's so great.
Yeah, I think I personally didn't like the Baba character, just because I felt like the Baba character exists so often in these games. Like, I feel like Kiryu always ends up with one of these like hanger-on, kind of like, you remind me of me when I was young kind of guys, and I'm very done with that character.
No, that's fair. I still found it the most enjoyable, like interesting of the storylines. Outside of Haruka's, actually, I would rank that probably my second most favorite.
I think that's fair. I think also part of my problem was like I was disappointed with it because like Saejima was like my favorite character from 4 probably.
Yeah, mine too.
And then Hokkaido is like a place I have mythologized somewhat in my brain, and they both were just kind of like okay. But I guess that's reality, right? It's not as good as you think it's going to be.
That is reality, as we again learn during Haruka's storyline, when the illusion comes down of the fantasy you've built in your head. which
Are those lyrics?
No, but I think it leads us into our news story.
Oh yeah, this is our not so much the news story as it is like a expose. This is the rest of the podcast, basically.
What happens when a user base, a customer base, has been told over and over again that a product is going to be something, and then they receive it finally during its demo period, albeit, but still, and they realize it's actually just a giant pile of dog shit in a paper bag that's been lit on fire, and it's not a product at all. That's right. This is the story of the rise and fall of Jeff Bezos. No, actually, this is about the company Fantastic and their game The Day Before. Which,
yeah.
How much did you follow this?
I remember initially when the trailers launched, everyone's like, "Oh, that looks so cool," and I was like, "Okay, I'm not gonna play that. That doesn't look like my type of game. It looks kind of brown. It looks like it looks like The Division, but with zombies.
Yeah,
or So I don't care. And to be and surprised, it actually kind of is The Division, but with zombies.
It is, as someone who plays The Division, not recently, but like within the last 6 months, was a pretty avid player of The Division 2. It is not even like that. From everything I've seen, there is one area called like the Dark Zones in The Division 2, which are extraction zones that are trying to pull off like Tarkov stuff. That is what everyone is referencing when they say, "Oh, it's like The Division." Even The Division, like when you go into an instance or go do an objective in the city, there are NPCs. It is all mapped out. You get into encounters that are like, if you die and have to start over, when you enter that space, those enemies drop down again and move the way they were going to cover. And like, it is an encounter that you have to figure out how to beat. Everything I've seen from The Day Before is not that. It is just always random. They're just there or they aren't. And multiple people, which I do have in my notes here, and I'm just going to cross out real quick, but multiple people have complained about the fact that like for a zombie apocalypse game, they see less than a half dozen zombies an hour while interacting through the city.
I mean, I think that one of the problems is the like number one problem with this game was actually the trailer to begin with, because I feel that there are probably a dozen of these games just like this that end up on Steam every day that like 5 people play and they go, that was a bit of a crap thing, and then no one pays any attention to it. Yeah. The problem was they rolled a 20 when they made the trailer, and now they had to deal with like everyone actually wanting to play their game.
That is the big problem here, is that they failed in like the primary rule, which is like undersell and overperform, and they did it opposite. Games have recovered from that. Hello Games did a great job with No Man's Sky. They oversold and underperformed in the beginning. They got huge backlash, but they stuck with it. They had the funding, they were able to keep going, and they were determined to make the game that they promised, and they did do that eventually. And it's a
Fallout
good
76
game.
Turned itself around
as well. It really did. I enjoy that game a lot. As little as I play it now, I really did like it at the end. That is not what happened with The Day Before with Fantastic. I guess they've actually come out with a few games before, and I didn't know that about them. So this isn't their first outing as a studio. They've put out 4 games prior, but they're all indie, like true indie games. See our last episode about indie versus
or the one
independent,
before that, or the one before that.
Yes. But there were red flags about this, clearly. I mean, the trailers alone were so hyper polished, even for like, I mean, a launch trailer is always going to be, but there was no in-game footage. It didn't look like anything was actually going to be represented within the game, like when people would actually look through from screenshots from the development cycle. The big sin they committed that really started to get people to notice this was that they delayed their launch by 8 months and said it was due to getting into Unreal Engine 5, which fine. If you want to change your engine up, great. It's probably going to take more than 8 months. So that was wild because I was expecting that a 2-year delay announcement and that we will let you know when we let you know. But
yeah, I think that the remake of Knights of the Old Republic also used a engine switching from 4 to 5 as the reason for their delay, and that's been, I think, almost a year at this point.
Yeah,
and there's still no release
and it's
date.
probably going to be another at least. That's reasonable, and that's the responsible way to handle it. What they did was buy Unreal Engine 5 and then use the in-store site to purchase assets and seemingly not modify a single one from their original form and just bring them into their game and make their game conform with the aesthetic of what they purchased, which it's a way to make a game. I wouldn't call it a AAA.
And there was also like a lot of just drama that always kept this game like toward the top of like public perception. Like it is the number one, it was the number one most wishlist game on Steam, maybe like ever. And like aside from just the big trailer, it also like they got into trouble at one point because they they asked for volunteers to help work. Migrating their project.
Not just asked, they got them.
Yeah, like literally just volunteers, like help us finish our game for no money. And then they got into a legal spat with a calendar app over the name, which then they used as an excuse to delay the game even further. So even though this game came out what seemed like a quick, lazy asset flip, they somehow managed to spend 4 years working on it.
Yeah, and I really want to stress when you say volunteer work, they came out and said that had nothing to do with writing code or the actual like management of development processes in-house, but it was just merely moderation, localization, and sometimes just cheering us up within the office, which I don't know what that means. I don't know who they were getting. Like, what does that fucking mean?
They hired clowns, like birthday
God,
clowns.
I hope. But my brain still goes sexual. I guess that could still be sexual. I don't know. But localization? Are you fucking kidding me? This isn't just like helping with translation. This was voiceover work for the trailers they were putting out in places like France and Portugal. Like, this is not an easy task, and someone should not be getting not paid to do that. Because if they're not getting paid, they're not being credited properly outside of like, thanks to the volunteer staff, which if they're trying to break into a business, this is the AI thing all over again then, in that same way. Like, you can't just take someone's work and not really attribute them properly. And having them under volunteer status, I don't know, it just felt so shitty in that way too.
Well, also, like, speaking of AI, like, if people like concerned about how AI is going to take jobs and all that jazz, but like, this is the game you get if you let an AI make a game.
Oh no, shit!
It is just like the most bog standard AAA buzzword, like brown mush with like barely like altered free assets. Like, it is just the most generic. I mean, if someone told me, if someone showed me the trailer and all the stuff for this game and told me it was made by a big studio, I would absolutely believe it because it just looks so boring.
Yep.
Like, if you told me this is like Square Enix's attempt at getting into, extraction shooters, I would have been like, yeah, absolutely. But that's like not a good thing. Like, it's such a bad way to go out. Like, it's like selling your soul to the devil just to like have him like just kill you immediately afterwards. Like, what a bummer.
He just puts a pair of tits on your head. It was one of those things where I kept seeing more and more hate hype build up over this thing for a couple weeks leading up to its early access
even
release.
Ever since that legal stuff with the calendar app, it started to become a joke at that point. That was, I think, beginning of this year, right?
Yeah. People were harassing them for a while. Like, their original date was November 10th for early access release, And people kept shit talking them, saying like, this is vaporware, it's a scam, it's not going to be good at all. And they went on to their Twitter and essentially said like, yeah, well, you're going to fucking see come November 10th. Like, we got the receipts on this. And then it didn't come out until December 7th for early access. Like November 10th went by and they didn't say shit even. Like,
the thing is, like, if this, like, all of their problems is hype. Like, there are so many of these games on Steam right now. Just like things that I see in my discovery queue every day. I'm just like, move along. Like, 100% their problem is hype. Like, this, maybe they don't make a ton of money on it, but this could have trucked along on Steam Early Access for another couple of years while they piddled with it, and maybe it would have been an okay game. But, like, they fed that hype monster.
I have a weird conspiracy theory about this, and this is just me. This podcast is not responsible for this. This is just me. I believe that people in the upper echelons, like the CEO and others, thought
of Fantastic,
no A in the beginning, believed that they could hype this up enough to get numbers going for early access, build early access, which they already warned might be in early access for like 2 years, maybe even more. I think they shot for a target of 18 months, but they definitely couched it with like, that is a soft target. And I think they thought with all of this acquisition happening and all of this disruption in the industry that they could have maybe gotten absorbed and made something big during that time. I think that was their play, and it backfired horribly because they were fooling themselves, like being like, people don't know what they actually like. Look, all these assets look fucking great. It's being brought to me, a non-person working like as a developer, and I'm looking at this going, that looks like a desk. That looks like a building. I don't know where the disconnect was, but someone was fooling someone in some way that goes beyond making a poor product on purpose, because I don't think this is a scam. This wasn't a scam. This wasn't vaporware, because there's full refund happening. Like, they're not
a lot of refunds happen.
They're not going to make money off of this. I have bought games.
Oh no, the studio is closed. They are not making.
So I have bought games that were scam vaporware before and just don't exist, and I did not get a refund on them. They got away with those scams. This didn't work that way, which makes me feel more and more like they actually were trying. Someone was trying to make a real game, and something happened in the process.
I think you might be right that there is that kind of stink to this. Like, where do they get the money to make these trailers? Maybe did they just accidentally make really good trailers? I mean, possible, but like, you know, maybe there is something to that. I mean, there is a lot of just like that kind of like the way tech business guys work, where they just want to make enough money to make enough of a stink to get bought by someone else, which, you know, I guess is fair.
Get bought with someone else. Fuck, we just saw that Google like faked that entire latest AI demo with their voice thing. What was it?
Oh yeah.
Associated with Bard. It wasn't Bard itself, but it was the thing they were, Gemini or whatever they were using to like talk to it, and they made it look like you can actually have like a real conversation with it and show like the camera attached to it something, and like in real time it would tell you what's going on. And it's like, no, that isn't how that worked. So
I had my realtor wrote me an email. It was, and I thought she was like, you know, she's Swedish. She was writing to me in English. I was like, this isn't very good. This is a bit weird. And then she told me, like, you know, I wrote that all in ChatGPT. That look great? And I was like, yeah, great job. Yeah. I like that. All those sentences made sense.
Yep.
Like, I think there's a lot of people fooling themselves on a lot of this stuff. Like, I feel like also there's like the same energy, like all the energy that was floating up there in the stratosphere that like had to go somewhere after all the NFT crap disappeared, and it just decided that AI was also 2 letters.
Yes.
Or, you know, some letters, and they're just like, oh, that's the thing that
Scammergy. Yes.
Yeah, Scammergy.
Yes.
I like that. You know, I don't know.
It has to go somewhere. It can neither be created nor destroyed. It's forever. It just changes state.
Yeah. I wish we'd just go back to like calling old people at retirement homes and stop.
I mean, we
stop
still
bugging me.
do that. It's just now they use AI to clone your grandkid's voice close enough that you get fooled.
Or maybe you're just an old person who doesn't talk to your grandkid in 20 years.
A lot
and
of it.
sound like
Yeah.
that was always a thing. Like when I worked in the ER, all hospitals are around a lot of retirement homes. The one I worked at, I think, was around a lot of them, even more so. And it was like every Thanksgiving, we'd get like so many admits of just like old, like everyone being like, we were just visiting grandma for Thanksgiving and she's like so much like dumber than she was last year and she doesn't know who I am. So we thought something might have happened. It's like, no, you just haven't seen her in a year and she doesn't remember any of this crap because she's like been living in a little old person cave of like a prison.
Where everything is the exact same day or same thing every single day. So your brain just compartmentalizes all of them into the same day because it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. And also everything smells like piss.
And that.
Yeah. Like, why are we talking about this? How did we get here?
Because we're talking about the disaster that was the company Fantastic.
Yeah. Like, I honestly feel like this game by itself in a vacuum isn't that surprising to me. Like I said, I feel like these games exist on Steam and they're put out on Steam all the time. Yeah. But this is just like a lesson in terrible hype. Like I think also a couple other games it reminds me of is Duke Nukem Forever.
Yep.
Yeah. Which also had a lot of problems in switching engines.
Like also that owned the rights. Was it just 2? Okay.
I think it was actually just 2, but like they worked on it for years. Every time a new engine came out, they stopped and restarted it. And a game that would have been pressable, in 2001, 2002, when it finally did get released, was terrible. Like they were just too much up their own butt about it. Like and also like that's the other thing with all these when you have these kind of big failure games like this, it feels like. Sorry, I just got a message.
Oh no, it's fine. I also found that it was not an impressible game to me.
Well, they all seem to have the same story, right? Like they all have this like, we're going to put this out, we're going to delay it to make it better. We're like they always have like, we're going to try and drum up some money so we can make it better, and then it always ends up being like the same kind of bland nothing that would have been the same product if they had just released it to begin with. Like if you compare this and Duke Nukem Forever, like I don't know. I mean, aside from the scale being much bigger with Duke Nukem Forever, I don't know that it would have been. It's all that different of a story. Where like, if they had just put this out with a little bit of hype back on Unreal 4 2-3 years ago, I don't think anyone cared.
It's the same thing I always said about No Man's Sky. Like, if they really downplayed the entire thing, I know they were excited about what they think they'd stumbled across, and they finally got there, and it's going to change the way games are built going forward. No Man's Sky, I would argue that No Man's Sky walked so that I don't think Starfield runs, but, like, it is learning how to walk faster. And so there are games out there that like can put out new interesting things, and it's about the hype moderation. If you can handle that, then the game, again, always undersell and overperform. When someone asks me how long they think an order is going to like take to get out in a kitchen, I tell them 15 to 20 minutes usually, even though I know that's going to be out in 7 to 10, because it's always going to make them feel better when it gets there a little bit faster than they were expecting.
It's like that one episode of TNG where they unfreeze, or they find Scotty trapped in that transporter buffer, and he's like annoyed that LaForge is giving him Picard like realistic times. He's like, no, dude, you can tell him it's going to take you an hour, then you do it in 30.
And you're just always working. What the fuck? Yeah.
I mean, also it reminds me of my recent experience on the airplane, trying to get a flight, where like they were just like, oh yeah, it'll be 10 more minutes, it'll be an hour, no worries. Where the opposite of like the way the power company works, where I live in Sweden, where they'll be like, power will be up in like an hour, and it's always like 10-20 minutes, or if it's like going to be an hour, they'll say it'll be like 3 hours.
Yeah. Last time I lost power, they were like, it'll be sometime the evening of the next day. And it was the same day I lost it. So I was thrilled. Great. Happy to hear that. Yeah, it's the way companies approach these things too. Like, even if you know your product isn't what you want it to be, you should always be striving to have the best message possible. Like, that's why when Duke Nukem Forever came out and the company said, look, this was our first big experience, shit happens, I was like, that's a weird way to like push things out. Oh, except that wasn't how Duke Nukem's development team reacted. That is a quote from Fantastic CEO about the collapse of their game.
Well, I mean, also the big reason Duke Nukem Forever actually finally came out is because, like, the bank, they owed so much money to the bank that the bank just, like...
It's like, this product has to exist.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's also, like, part of I think, the crassness of just, like, business, where if you're someone who views all products are basically the same, all you need to do is sell it better or market it better, then you get problems like this, where, like, you have a crappy product, but you figure, okay, we'll spend more on marketing to, like, you know, overcome the crappiness. So that works all the time in a lot of things, you know, cars, movies,
I think,
you know, detergent. But, like, you can't actually do that nowadays, especially when you have a 5-year hype cycle, because people start picking up on stuff.
Well, and again, I think a lot of that has to do with, and maybe it's that the industry needs to evolve more. Maybe we're in a weird growth spurt that we're not quite ready to handle as consumers and developers for games. But the idea of a AAA game right now, I think, lends itself to the same pitfalls as any genre definition that you get, right? I think there's something to it that makes it problematic, in that there are incredible games that I will love for my entire life that do not fall under the definition of a triple A. I would consider them to be triple A, but they're not, because it is a game by definition right now that requires vast amounts of money that no one studio could ever really achieve on their own. And the amount of resources and assets that just take so many years of talent to develop that, I don't know, the product itself almost makes me wonder, is it even actually worth it? Like, is it worth someone knowing that they can only make 10, maybe 10 AAA games during their entire life in this gaming industry as a career, or 20 or 30 amazing games that just aren't triple A by definition?
Right.
I don't know. Something's got to change.
I think also part of the problem with the hype stuff is, like, we overvalue that.
Yeah.
And another part of the news segment, E3 is dead officially. R.I.P. E3.
Yeah.
Like, legit, like, pour one out for a real one. But I think the part of the problem is, like, the industry is too big for the outlets that we have to talk about them. Like, we can't put all the games in an E3 like, you can't go to the San Diego Convention Center or the Los Angeles Convention Center and fit all the games in there, even if they all have, like, just one tiny itty bitty booth. We can't do that anymore. And that also means, like, that hype has to be, we have to do something with that too, because, like, there's so many people trying to play video games, and they have so many different, like, what they want out of stuff, that, like, you can't just have AAA games and indie games and then, like, let it just sit, like you have, where you have, like I keep comparing things to movies, where you have, like, oh, we're the people who watch, you know, we watch movies and then we see the trailers for other movies and we watch those movies. And then you have the people who go to, like, art house films and they're going to, like, oh, we're going to see some Truffaut film from 40 years ago and then watch a movie filmed by, like, a man with no arms with his feet in Spain on a farm, or, you know, like, those, like, you don't have a middle ground with film. And, you know, maybe the video game industry is working that way, but I don't think it is. Like, I think you still have, like, a big middle ground. And the way we cover it and the way we talk about it, there is that middle ground. You have YouTube channels that, or maybe will have their niche. You have, like, big game IGN type things. And then, like, you might have some, like, you have like the algorithms that pop stuff up on Steam, or, you know, like people you follow on Twitter. But other than that, there's just kind of like this word of mouth hype for most of the other stuff that gets spread around. And we just don't have that kind of like the news outlets or whatever the future of that is going to be, like in a, I mean, not to, you know, I'm sorry, Mr. Musk, but like the post-Twitter world that's going to happen. Like, there isn't really like I don't have a good understanding of what that's going to look like. And I think that's also a big reason why hype is kind of off right now, where things can just be kind of randomly viral without necessarily having like the same like enthusiast understanding that you get with something like that has been around for a lot longer, like board games or movies or books or whatever, where you have like I know I read the Utney Reader, and these are going to be the niche novels that I'm going to read this year, and you know, I just buy whatever I see at the airport. Like the industry is expanding, and the user base isn't necessarily fracturing like that. Like, there are still a lot of people, like, there are people who only play indie games, there are people who only play AAA games, but I still think that most players mix and match. You know, they like a bit of both, and there isn't really a singular way of like looking at it now.
I think you're right. I think if I'm getting your point right, the idea is that
fair.
No, that fantastic. Like, the reason The Day Before is something we're even talking about is because it went viral. This happened within this social media vacuum that blew it up into a way where maybe they weren't even predicting themselves.
Right.
And then they found themselves in a weird position that way. Not to give them cover in any way, but you're right. There is something about the way we consume media these days, the way media is produced these days to get consumed, that does make it more precarious for a developer to put out information about their game.
I think it's also a middleman problem. Like, I think there's a disconnect between the developer and the user, and like for a long time that's always been the role of journalists, and to a lesser extent or to a greater extent like video game publishers. And we've seen the phase out of publishers as publishers and developers become more and more the same thing, and the number of like news outlets dries up. You know, you don't, like, those things are less and less profitable. There isn't really a good way to connect, aside from like algorithm type stuff like Steam, Discovery Queue, and all that jazz. There isn't like a good way of like me knowing what I'm gonna like, what I want to get, except from like, you know, podcasts and YouTube videos and that sort of thing. Like, literally word of mouth, but from parasocial relationships.
Yeah, and just real quick, the Steam algorithm, like, don't trust algorithms to actually show you what you want, because according to the Steam algorithm, my top game should be Orc Massage, and I have never played an adult game on Steam, so that's fucking wild. On Steam. Specifically, I do say that, because I did rent that one, like, Girls Gone Wild quiz show game when I was in high school from the Blockbuster. The game that got banned because apparently one of the contestants was like 17 on her spring break. And yeah, I had no clue about that. But
I didn't know such a thing existed.
Oh, yeah. It was a time that my parents were gone for the week, and I was like, I'm going to play an adult game. I think I got that in a Leisure Suit Larry game that weekend.
Oh, that must have been so depressing.
It was. It actually really was. I felt gross, and it's the first time I felt like sexual shame.
Like, I remember we didn't ever had like we had only had basic cable, if we ever had cable growing up. And then we got like one of those like free weekends for like Showtime, because like our cable went out or something, you know, like cable companies will do that.
Yeah. And,
you know, I was like, oh, I'm going to watch Showtime at night or whatever. And it ended up being like this weird, like, pony play, like, kind of thing where they're all just, like, it wasn't even like sex. Like, they were literally just doing horse things.
Yeah.
Like, carrying each other around and like eating oats and shit. And I was just like, man, like, I don't know that I ever want to watch porn again. It's just fantastic. Such a bummer.
So,
So
this is the lesson of the Studio Fantastic.
Yeah. Should we say some more about E3? E3 being dead?
I mean, it was always my dream to go there one day, either as like a member of like a gaming company or just as a civilian. But that's dead now, and I don't get to do that. So I guess the lesson is like, as soon as you can, like, go do your dreams, especially if they involve a third party that may not be around forever.
Yeah, like the planet Earth.
Yeah. Planet Earth is a third party. Yeah.
No, but like I think this also kind of points to like my earlier point that there isn't really like a good way of doing like a big tent video game outlook thing. Like you need to have like PAX is gonna still roll, and they're gonna still show like mostly indie games, and you'll see the big stuff at like Comic Cons and other things like that. Mm-hmm. But I don't think video game expos are gonna die or conventions are gonna die, even if we do move like the reveal trailers onto like streaming stuff. Yeah, I just think it's gonna fracture a lot more. Like, it used to be that you generally had sci-fi conventions back in, like, the 60s, and that was mostly Star Trek. And then it became Star Trek conventions and Battlestar Galactica conventions and Star Wars conventions. And
still planning on maybe next November doing the Doctor Who convention in Chicago next year. I think that's going to be a lot of fun to do. Yeah.
So, like, I think that things are going to fracture a lot more. Like, E3 won't be a thing. I wonder for things like IGN and like some of those bigger outlets will be a thing, and they'll just be like strategygames.gov or whatever where you go to, or like have like a person you follow for just
that if it's strategy write-ups, that is and always will be game facts, but that's just me.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. Like,
yes.
It's going to disintegrate, like
of
not
course.
Disintegrate, become what was that? No.
It's both going to for listeners, Arvid is looking around his room for some invisible thing flying around. But yeah, it will fracture. It will become compartmentalized in better ways, right? It's going to become more defined for each thing because we'll have the ability to define them all. I think you're right. Like, all sci-fi could be put under one umbrella at first, and then you get enough of a fan base. It grows big enough that it can become its own self-sustaining thing. Yeah, I think we'll still have like the big umbrella ones, like a Comic-Con, and I think they will still be places where you will reveal the trailer for a big Marvel movie or a video game of some kind that's huge.
Exactly.
But no, I do think you're right. Things are going to become more specialized and specific over time. They're going to have to be.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think as that happens, you're going to see less day befores because that's going to be like they're not going to get that kind of hype.
They're not going to get the eyes on them. Yeah.
And also, like, I think that I was never very like again, I always kind of assumed this would just be like another thing, another one of those kind of Steam shovelware games. But like if a game studio that has 4 games that you've never heard of before is trying to make a AAA game, a game that notoriously takes a ton of money, like maybe approach it with some skepticism.
Bit of a red flag. Yeah. Like if you haven't seen them like expand into a new studio, get a bunch of influx of money because they've partnered with someone, like none of those things happened, but they swore they were going to make like the next gen game. Like,
yeah, like I think of something similar, like like the last time I can think of like a video game kind of out of nowhere, or like a company coming out of nowhere making a AAA game, like it was like Kingdoms of Amalur or whatever.
Yes,
and that literally,
we're gonna do an episode on that at some point.
Yeah, like that game lost a ton of money, and they were initially planning on being an MMO, but it was a huge investment with it literally like an NFL baseball player. Stars.
Was he a baseball star?
A baseball player. I think he was a pitcher. Basically, took his entire like if you think of a professional sports player's like entire wages over his entire career,
like he was
sticking it into a single game.
And to
then
be
it
honest,
just craps out.
one of the best fantasy like games I've ever played personally.
Very
very
underrated.
So we will cover that on here at some point.
Yeah, it's an MMO without other people,
with an amazing magic crafting system and like weapon craft, like everything about that. I wanted more and more of it. It was,
yeah.
All right.
My point is, like, the only reason that worked out is because A, they were a smaller, like, the people working on it had a lot of experience, and B, they had a lot of money behind them.
Yeah.
And from everything I've heard about Fantastic, they did not have that. You know.
Yeah. Which we on this podcast will never say that you should judge a game by its price point, but in the year of your Lord 2023, if someone is promising a AAA game at a $40 price point, something's rotten in Denmark.
Yeah, or it doesn't. I mean, I don't know. Ubisoft could do that, then just throw enough like microtransactions and DLC.
I don't even think the latest, like, I think it was $49.99 for the latest Assassin's Creed, which I'm still enjoying, but yeah.
My point is, like,
sure.
Anytime you see something big like that has a low price point, expect to be hosed in some way.
Look
Either they're going to want more money later,
a little bit, and see what they've been making. Yeah.
Yeah, at the very least.
And look at, like, have they been hiring more people? Like, have they been putting out announcements over the last couple years for more developers and designers? Because if they haven't,
you see a really cool kung fu movie involving anthropomorphic kangaroos that is made by a studio no one's ever heard of. It's not that a bunch of doctors from Hong Kong banded together with a bunch of money to make a AAA or a great movie because they knew how to make great movies.
Yeah. No, that sounds crazy. And like you would have to be insane to do something like that. I guess that does.
Yeah, Warriors of Virtue is it's a great indie movie that no one's.
Is it great?
I mean, it was big in the sense that, you know, they did like the full merchandising.
We've been bringing up a lot of movies on here lately, and I think at some point we're going to just for responsibility's sake have to put our money where our mouth is on those and actually rewatch those movies as a group and talk about it.
Warriors of Virtue.
I think that Bunraku that I brought up earlier, I feel like Marcus brought up one or two on his own while he was on here. But yeah, I think we got some movies that we maybe need to have a little recording sesh while watching.
I think that's a good idea.
I think it is too. Maybe new projects for the new year.
Yeah.
Yeah. This doesn't have to be in the recording, but I also think that at the end of this year, we should be caught up with the Yakuza series or close to it within a game or two. Yeah. I would like maybe next year to put out special episodes that are, 30 minutes to an hour long that are specifically about the story beats within each game.
I agree. I actually was thinking something of the opposite. In that after we get done with all the Yakuzas that are out, we do just a big, hairy episode that is just Yakuza storyline.
You mean like a 10-part episode that is...
Yeah, it's a side podcast that's just... Yeah, exactly.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think we you get every time we talk about Yakuza, we're always just dancing around the stuff we actually want to talk about. 6
episodes of vagaries right now. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. That we should probably get into all that stuff, and also Yakuza is just so hard to talk about. Like so much of the value of Yakuza but the stuff that makes Yakuza unique is its weird, twisty, spoilery stuff.
Which weirdly enough, this one that we are wrapping up on this episode didn't have enough weirdness to it. Outside of the bear, like so few oddities. There was no like palaces under the river or any like wild shit going on. I was aching for that, and I hope that comes back.
Yeah,
in its own way.
I think you're right. Like not to like
This felt the most
digress by
grounded.
going way the heck back. Yeah, there is very little weird stuff aside from like the Vision Quest stuff with Saejima and the wrestling a bear.
Sure,
Like there
still
isn't
was the
as
most
weird.
grounded.
Yeah, 6 gets pretty weird in like a very earlier Yakuza way. Which we'll talk about when we get to that.
I'm excited. I'm excited to play it. Excited to talk about it. This is the month of Yakuzamas.
Yakuzmas. Yeah.
Yakuzamas.
I don't actually have a quiz because I actually forgot. Also because I have COVID brain.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no one.
I think we've run pretty much the length of a normal episode anyway. Let me look at our recording time.
We still got our.
I got a little over an hour and a half.
Yeah, I mean we still got like our what we've been playing thing. So
it's true. Can we take 2 minutes for that? So I may refresh this glass of wine. And we're back.
Just in time for what we've been playing this week.
What have you been playing this week? We always start with me.
I haven't been playing much of anything. I have been idly clicking at Cookie Clicker because we were talking about that last episode. Pull up my phone.
What's your per second count too?
Because that's really the best way on Steam. So I don't want to bring that up, but I think I was at like 300 million or something per second.
I'm at 43.9 billion per second right now. So you gotta catch up.
But that's not very fun to talk about. Also, we talked about it last episode.
We did.
I've been dipping into the Stellaris also because it's a game I can play with one hand on a laptop.
Sure.
So I can keep track of my ward. But the one thing we've been playing together a little bit has been Lego Worlds, which is this kind of like Lego Minecrafty type thing.
That's what I've heard about it. I've heard only good things.
Yeah.
Only from people that have like kids that play, but like I've heard good things about it.
Yeah, like it's very big and there's a lot of things you can do with it. And there's a lot of like different servers you can go on that like it makes it very easy to like move to different like worlds.
Mm-hmm.
But there's like no communication, so you never have to worry about like. I mean, I guess everyone could still draw a big penis, but it's not like I haven't encountered anything like that.
Yeah.
Mostly, what happens is that me and my nephew pretend like we're gonna do something, like build a thing, and then we both get out our bazookas and then just shoot at each other and blow up the landscape until the world we're in is just a cratered mass of smoke and fire, and then we
sounds fun.
Move to a new world. No, it's great actually. Yeah. It's fun for a good half hour of just like pure chaos and screaming, and then so like I haven't really done too much actual like building and stuff with that. The UI is a little clunky. I think I would like it better. If I was like serious and trying to like build stuff, I would probably prefer to play it on a keyboard rather than my laptop. Oh, also another thing, I've been watching my sister play Disney Dreamlight Valley, which is kind of like the Disney Animal. I love watching my sister play
really
it. I feel very tempted to play it. Like it looks very chill. It does all the Animal Crossing things that I like, but at the same time, it does enough of the Stardew things that I like that it doesn't have that same like.
Yeah.
Specifically, I speak of the day cycle that both games have, where Animal Crossing is real time. So if you're someone who plays at night, you are boned. And Stardew Valley has like this energy system where like you have to end the day so before you run out of energy by going to sleep.
Yep.
Dreamlight Valley, it splits the difference in that there's like a real time kind of a thing, but at the same time it doesn't matter that much. And there is an energy system, but like you can just eat more and then you have more energy, so you can keep playing. Like there isn't like a way of limiting it that way. And it's just really fun to like see all these characters. They have like the little Animal Crossing style houses that are all pretty well decorated and
that feel
all
like
the
they
little
belong
objects.
to that Disney character too.
Yeah, almost all. There's a couple
Yeah.
outliers. I'm like, but like they're all the objects are really well done. Like there's a lot of just like unlocking a different pair of shoes and stuff like that. But at the same time, the models are it holds up. It holds up to like a Disney animation caliber. That even though this is like technically a licensed game, I don't think this is made in house by Disney at all.
No.
I really like looking at. It makes me think of like Kingdom Hearts in a certain way, like with the storyline and the way they connect, but without the anime stuff, obviously, and also just much chiller.
Chill is the way I would describe it, and it's always been funny to me that Animal Crossing is considered a chill vibes game when the entire premise of these games with the day and night cycle is that like, well, this is your life now. This is your second job.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's the reason I stopped playing so many MMOs back in the day was because I don't want to feel pressured to have to play. So
yeah,
I picked it up when it first came out, like I think the week it came out, because it so appealed to me. I love Disney movies. I love everything Disney. I really do. I don't talk about it a lot because it's weird for a man in his late 30s to be obsessed with Disney, but I really love it. And so it appealed to me on so many different levels, and it is a game that I keep going back to play because it is so chill and relaxing. Yeah, good Lego Worlds and Disney Dreamlight Valley, man. That's a good set of chill games to play when you're not feeling good.
Yeah, no, I mean and also I got to just kind of watch most of it too, so it's just that was chill, good time. What have you been playing this week or weeks?
Yeah, weeks. So, like I said, I picked up a PS5 right before I started feeling super crummy. It was like the first day I was starting to feel sick. So I'm glad I did it then. But, I've been playing... I played maybe an hour to 2 hours of all of the base, like, PlayStation exclusive catalog games. I played a little bit of Spider-Man 2. I played a little bit of the new Horizon Forbidden West game.
Right. Had you played the first one?
Oh yeah. And the DLC expansion for it, but loved it. So I was really excited to play the sequel. But I'd also played the God of War, like God of War for PlayStation 4 and all that. So I got Ragnarok, yeah. And that's the one where, like, story-wise, I felt so enthralled in. It's a really intense story. It's really deep. Combat's pretty much the same. My main complaint is that in the first one of these new gen games, they had a skill tree that was dedicated to your shield. So you actually had this cool melee build that was like a stun build that you could do where you built up this stun meter effect, and then you could use your right joystick button to like devastate enemies, if not outright kill them in these cool animations. And I thought it was a really cool way to do like the quick time events that of yore in this new build. They got rid of that in this one. The shield still exists, but it's not its own skill tree anymore. And for so much of the game, I just refused to acknowledge that and just saved up all of my experience because I wasn't using my axe or my chain blades, and I was just using the shield and fists with no skill tree. I personally enjoyed it that way because it made it even harder and more entertaining because the animations with just going fisticuffs are really fun. But I've started to like slowly accept that the God of War has many weapons in their arsenal, and it's fine to get used to switching things up. Like I once I finally got the abilities that let you like delay your attacks, and during the delay you swap weapons, then I started to feel like it was more viable to kind of mix and match things up without losing my combo streak. But like I said, there is a time and place for it, and I started to get bored. So I moved over to some Lawnmower Simulator. And I am...
Is that a PS5 exclusive?
It is not PS5 exclusive, but it was free on PS Plus. And so...
there you go.
Yeah, exactly. I think Power
so. Basically,
Wash
you're doing
Simulator
the modern equivalent. You're doing the modern equivalent of getting the console and just playing all the stuff on the demo disc.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, pretty much. And I don't regret it. It's really enjoyable.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to think, though. I guess there is one thing that I've been playing that I haven't had enough time in to critically say whether I've been thoroughly enjoying it or not, but I'm very excited to get deeper into it. And that is that there is this thing Blizzard has done called the Season of Discovery for World of Warcraft Classic. And so I went ahead and got a subscription again. And I've got a character in the new classic Season of Discovery. I'm a rogue, undead. I'm in Brill. I'm still like doing my early missions. I think I'm level 7 now. But what's nice about Season of Discovery is that while it is classic, with all the restrictions that entails, they are capping it at these different places. So right now everything's level 25 is the max cap for right now. And it's going to be that for the next couple months at least, I think. So that's fun, is that I don't feel like too rushed to get to max level. Like my friends are higher than me right now, but it's not a big deal. I'll get there eventually.
Well, I think it's really fun, and I haven't played any of I've played very little Classic, and I certainly haven't played any of Season Discovery, but like they're turning Black Fathom Depths, which was a dungeon, a really big, like a dungeon with like a big entrance area.
One of my favorites.
Which I think early into development may have originally been intended to be a raid, but they're turning it into a raid for lower level characters because that's where they're doing this at. I think that's such a good idea. I don't know if it's enough to get me back to playing Classic right now. I mean, I played retail really hard for like a month, and then I'm kind of burnt out on a while because that's how I do.
Yeah. Nick and Sig are playing. We could get a small group going. I've been thinking about making a guild.
I know.
Look, I don't want to pressure you. I don't want to be the one to pressure you. That seems reversed.
If I do, it won't be till like January.
Yeah.
But like, I think that's such a good idea. Like, I feel like it feels like Blizzard has a lot of fun ideas to do stuff with Classic, and like with the Season of Discovery and stuff. And I hope that this translates to them finding interesting things to do with retail, and not just like, this is our boring MMO that makes money, and then Classic is like where we actually have fun with it.
That's exactly what it's going to be, though. Classic will become the new experimental like playground, because it's so tried and true. They know they can tweak it.
Yeah, which is okay so long as they learn from those things and don't forget that retail exists.
Yeah, apply it to retail. No, I'm sure it's the R&D.
Especially, I mean, that's also
server.
Yeah, I mean, that's also like one of the things that made me feel, one of the reasons I felt good about like the Chris Metzen reveal at BlizzCon was like, oh, this is something they have plans for, and all that.
They know their audience.
So
yeah.
I mean, I mean, I've been playing WoW, and I've wandered away. I mean, I've been playing WoW. God, how long has it been? WoW's 19 years old. I've been playing WoW for 19 years. And I've wandered away and come back enough.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I mean, I would have said up until a few weeks ago that I haven't played WoW in like 7 years or something. I don't know, 6 years. I'm pretty sure I didn't get into the last expansion.
You played BFA with me and Nick for like 5 minutes.
Yeah,
I don't
maybe
think you
literally
beat, like,
5
the intro
minutes.
quest.
Yeah,
and you were just like, nah, this
is. I remember now. I hate the end game. I hate end game. The moment WoW Classic becomes WoW Classic end game, I am done with the game. That is my end.
Well, that is one thing I liked. That's one thing I liked about Dragonflight, is that the end game, like the end game doesn't feel like end game. Like they meet out like the quests to a point where you always feel like you're doing stuff by like you go do like the daily quests allow you to level up the reps, which give you more like storyline quests as you go. So it never feels like you're just sitting there like waiting to get into a raid. It does annoy me how much Dragonflight puts emphasis into like little items you can get to increase the item level of your gear a little bit. Like I don't really care that much about it. Like either give me new pieces of gear that are that little increment better, or don't even bother. Like I just it's so annoying to have to like have my bags full of like essence of dragon, tooth, and like I use that to increase the item level of my bracers by 3, and I don't fucking care about this. This is dumb.
Yeah. Yep, it is interesting playing this again and remembering what old mechanics of video games used to be like. I mean, I'm enjoying it. It's fun to go back and play, but the bag space issue especially is tiring.
Yeah. I mean, going back and playing Classic and be like, oh yeah, I remember I actually have to pay attention to having a wand and my melee weapon or whatever. And like, oh, I'm a hunter, so I have to have ammo now.
At least Diablo like gave us dimensions to items, so we had like our own little mini game with bag space to play.
Yeah. Well, I think with WoW, like they've taken out so much of the RP in the RPG, that like that's like what people are really like latch onto when they add it. Like I think of like the Legion Hall quests, like class quests in Legion, and then like whenever they add just that little bit of RP-able stuff into World of Warcraft, people go mad for it, but they are so reticent to do that, to do that kind of thing. And I just don't get it.
I know. Well, and that's funny you say that too, because I actually made a second character on the Season of Discovery Classic RP server, because I was like, well, this is clearly going to be the best server. Like, no one I'm playing with is on that server, so I can't play with them because they don't do cross server for Classic. But I made it on there because I think this is going to actually be my like secret real main character. I am going to get into an RP guild. I am going to have some fun that way, especially if we're locked to level 25 for a few months. Like, think of the necessity for role playing that will come out within like the RP server. It's going to be fun and interesting. I can't wait.
I think that's also a good point. That's always kind of been the problem with World of Warcraft, is that they have an entire world, and they always end up being like, oh, this is the end game zones for this expansion, and then everyone's just in those 5 zones. And meanwhile, they have this entire world that just gets stagnant.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's just it's such a bummer that there's like this huge world that no one goes back to. Like, it feels so lame saving the world when you're just like, you feel like you're just saving the last 5 zones you went to,
Yeah, because that's how they designed it. What they ultimately made was a theme park. And the way theme parks operate is you put in shops and you put in long lines and things of that nature, so that when people are walking down the corridors, they don't all crush each other with their own body weight because there's so many of them. They designed it in such a way so that the end game content was way over here doing these things, and all the new influx of players that they can start getting money from 0 to whatever the level is, are going to be in those earlier
I would
areas.
Disagree,
but I think that's a wrong model.
I also disagree in that's not how they've done that for a long time. Like, WoW for years has been like, we want you to be the max level as soon as possible. Like, we want the leveling experience to be a tutorial that is quick. So, like, probably not since, like, Pandaria have they thought
which
of
is,
it
like,
that
the
way.
last time I actually, like, really played for sincere was Pandaria. Mists of Pandaria was the last game that I took
which is fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like now there's so many ways to level your character quickly.
You're right,
They
you
put
can
in
buy your
specific
levels
zones.
now. Yeah.
Yeah, and then also, like, you have, like, they do this thing where you can time travel to different areas and just do that expansion's quest lines, which will get you from 1 to 60 because they've, like, dosed it out perfectly so that that's the leveling experience. So you really just end up playing kind of like 2 expansions with the game instead of having to play the entire game to get to max level. which like again just keeps sectioning off all the world that they have. So you keep having more and more just empty zones.
Yeah.
And there's been talk of them doing like kind of a 2.0 refresh of some of the older zones in like the new expansions, and I hope that's something
it really feels like with phasing they should be able to bring those zones back into like relevance for high-end game content.
I mean, also what they did during Cataclysm, where they just refreshed every single zone.
That was amazing.
Like and it's like they did that because they felt like, oh, the world changed, we need to like redo the whole world from Classic, and it's like there's now been the gap of time between Classic and Cataclysm, and the gap of time between Cataclysm and now is like it's way disproportionate, you know.
Yeah. Like almost whole people like being eligible to vote versus them being born and entering middle school. Like that's the gap of time between the two.
Yeah, I think that when Cataclysm came out, not us, but all of our friends were freshmen in college, I think.
Yeah, probably about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. I mean, I would have been a freshman, but it would have either been my second attempt at being a freshman or my third.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah.
And yet another one of our podcasts ends with us somehow managing to talk about World of Warcraft again.
I know. Weird. I mean, it makes more sense this time, but still. Maybe an episode on it is due one day. But
I don't even know if I could do a whole I mean, like, I don't even know where I'd stop. Like, I think I'd just keep peppering.
I think we would have to play it like we do the Yakuza series and do like the classic expansions as they come out or something. Like,
we could just do like a big storyline thing. That's another thing I like about World of Warcraft is just how batshit insane the plot lines have to be because they have different writers doing different things every other expansion. So it's just like this big.
I think we need our own team of people to cover all of the storylines. But yeah,
what's that writing exercise? Exquisite Corpse. That's what the entirety of Blizzard or the World of Warcraft storyline feels like. Except for the Shadowlands. I'm not going to talk about the Shadowlands storyline. That was terrible. That was just so bad. I'm and that's the other thing that Dragonlance feels like.
On that one.
It feels like Dragonlance feels like it's like a giant like therapy session for everyone after Shadowlands. Like they just like all the storyline. There's so many quests that are just like talk to this guy and make him feel better, or like help this person find a pillow so they can sleep at night. I don't even remember
what was like the big feature. Was there a class or something they brought out for that?
No, the big they didn't do either, which was part of the problem. But I mean, the big problem was just like there was so many different currencies and things. Like there was just so much daily grind. Even some of it was actually interesting. Like they had this thing called Torghast, which is like this randomized personal dungeon you could go through every day, which I actually thought was really fun. Except for you can only do that so often without wanting to kill yourself.
I did because I have played that tower. I remember the tower, and it was a bit of a roguelike that you could play through. That was enjoyable.
But that lost its that overstayed its welcome by good.
Well, because the Final Fantasy 14 version does it better, anyways. So.
Oh yeah. Well, in a lot of ways, Final Fantasy 14's been eating World of Warcraft's lunch for a while.
Really been thinking about getting back into that now that I got a PS5 and I know people that play on the PS5. So that might be the next thing I do.
Yeah. No, I mean mostly like a big problem with Shadowlands is just it's how dreary and terrible the storyline was in the setting. Like World of Warcraft, I feel like 80 like for me personally, like I play for 60% of the reason I play is for the art style, and like the rest is like the music and some other things and also with Samwise DDR, I don't know how he says it, leaving. It'll be interesting to see where the art goes because like he's been the art director of Blizzard since 1996, I think. So
shit.
You know, I mean, like I think that I mean I could probably do an entire episode about how his personal art style has like
created Blizzard.
Not only
Like,
not only Blizzard, but like so many other just like the generic art style of video games. Like I don't think League of Legends
it's
is
actually
a thing.
no, you're right. No, you're absolutely
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
I would love to do a deep dive on that because you're right.
Yeah.
It was so informative to so many people that it became the generic de facto setting for art style.
Yeah,
for games.
I honestly like I don't know that I feel like I'm probably being a bit hyperbolic, but like I think like Samwise DD or DDA.
Yeah,
I honestly don't know.
We'll learn
he always
by
just
the
writes
deep dive.
Samwise on
Yes.
his art. Yeah, it's like he's like up there with Tolkien in like his role in fantasy stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think that like even like whether you're talking about like high end fantasy shit or just like cheapo phone apps, like they all in some way are calling back to like big shoulder pad Warcraft org.
Yeah. Go into a generative AI and type in any kind of fantasy term. It's going to be his artwork that's being influenced in it, which is its own issue. But yes.
Yeah.
It goes to show the human consciousness, like subconscious, is tapped into that on a deep level.
Yeah. I mean, he has a YouTube channel where he just draws every once in a while. I would totally recommend checking it out. Like, it is, he does just his little art drawing, but like art tutorials or whatever. But it's just a really chill. Speaking of artist YouTubes, James Gurney, the guy who did Dinotopia, has a YouTube channel.
Oh,
that is also very fun and very chill. I would definitely recommend checking that out if you like that sort of thing.
Yeah, I do actually. You know, it's interesting. Well, nah, never mind. I was gonna say, recommending YouTube videos, that almost could be its own segment, but I've been getting really into a guy lately on YouTube called Vadim in the Wild is his name.
Oh.
He's a bushcraft guy. Highly recommend checking him out. He's Ukrainian. He's a TV producer that likes to go on these like vacations. And dude, I watched a video of him, and I've watched it like twice now to like try to get an idea of the time frame, and I'm pretty sure he is accurately portraying the time. This motherfucker in 4 days fells a deadfall tree, turns it into a small sawmill that is both a saw and a grain producer, that he takes like corn and things from like neighboring lands and pulls out into, and then he uses the saw's like auto function of cutting dimensional lumber because he has this big bow saw that he can adjust the height on the handle to, into making shingles and roofing and like all this. Like, he just builds a small cabin for himself with a chimney. 4 days, done. Like, has it. He's eating fish and like,
impressive.
So everything he does, I am in love with this man. This is fantastic, and he is my new obsession. So highly recommend. Check out Vadim in the Wild. I think it's all one word for his thing, but it's VADIM. Vadim in the Wild. Yes.
Fair. All right. I think if we're talking about YouTube channels, I think that means we're done,
then,
right?
Yes. Unless that's a new segment we're going to start doing, then we've hit the end.
All right. So thanks for listening to this podcast.
Yeah.
Sorry about last week. Things got crazy,
Shit
so
happens.
we couldn't put on ep. But we're back on schedule, I think, going forward. Well, Yakuzmas will flow over until the next year, but no one takes their Christmas decorations down on New Year's Day anyway.
I'm going to go kicking and screaming into February without taking my tree down. I've put so much work into that thing right now. It might be one of our photos for this year. I feel very proud about it.
Yeah, so thanks for listening. If you liked this episode, you can leave us a review, or if you're on YouTube, you can like it and then subscribe on whatever thing you're listening to this at. You could tell people about our podcast if you think it's worth telling people about.
Fuck yeah, it is.
If you have any questions or comments, you can email us at thesavestatepodcast@gmail.com. If I ever remember the password, I'll check that to see if you've emailed us.
We'll get to that one day, folks.
And then, otherwise, you can get at us on social at the Save State Pod,
which I will check one of these days, as is my almost only duty in this podcast outside of rambling for 2 hours once a week.
That's not true. You do the thumbnails.
Those are going to change here soon too, to a much different style.
And hey, man, learning and developing, that's part of being an artist.
Well, look, I am very proud as we wrap into this new year of the progress we have made on this. We've done a lot of projects together over a lot of years, and this is the first one that we felt was something we could actually start putting out there. I think there's a lot.
Hey, save it for the year-end pod. If you don't want to
look, all I'm trying to say is that I think the only reason I felt like I was capable of achieving this over this year was by amazing listeners such as Scott Karatopoulos, who is probably our biggest listener and biggest fan, and I'm really doing it all for him. So here's to you, Scott.
We hope he gets out of that. We hope he gets out of that iron lung soon.
God, it's touch and go at this point. What we're gonna see. We'll check back in with his progress next week.
All right, bye guys.
Bye.